Hey, what's up, everybody? It's just Charles, and I welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and where we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And today, I have a very interesting episode for you guys that I hope the majority of you guys will enjoy. So let's go ahead and get into the topic here. Now, the NBA season is quickly coming to a close. There are less than 10 games left before the play-in tournament starts. As you all know, the play-in tournament starts on April 12th. From April 12th to the 15th. That's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm sure a lot of you guys can't wait for that. And then, of course, the NBA playoffs begin on April 16th. So the playoffs are right around the corner, right? And the season is pretty much over at this point. Throughout this entire year, there have been many different storylines, but there have been a few major ones this entire season. There was, and still is, the Ben Simmons saga. We were going to do a video about it, but I don't even want to get into it. It's just going to make me upset. Then we had the saga surrounding the uncertainty of whether or not Kyrie Irving would be able to play basketball. That lasted for pretty much the entire season. And we had basically the disastrous season that the Lakers have been having pretty much since the start of this season to where we are now. Of all of the things that have been said this season, there has been one major misconception that has been disseminated this entire season and has gotten so pervasive that now this misconception has turned into truth in reality for a lot of the people that are watching basketball and trying to understand what exactly went on with this team this year. All season long, media members and fans have been trying to make sense or trying to understand why this particular Lakers team has underperformed this entire season. As we speak, the Lakers have yet to win 32 games this season. I want you guys to think about that. Going into this season, this team was picked to be one of the teams to represent the Western Conference. As we speak, the Lakers are literally heading towards the lottery, with 3 of the last 4 teams that they're going to play are above 500 teams. And they need to win a good amount of those games to even make it into the play-in tournament. The Lakers, as we speak, are heading towards the lottery. That is, there's no other way to say that than to say this has been the biggest disaster and biggest disappointment in the history of the NBA by far. By far. I can't think of a close second. And the legacy of LeBron James will take a hit. There are a lot of people out there trying to protect it, and they're trying to use the scoring title as the way to do so. That is the only single bargaining chip that they're holding on to. Whenever you try to point blame in his direction, they say, well, he's 37 years old, leading the league in scoring. So that has been his single out this entire season. But there's been this misconception about this team that I want to address, given the fact that the season is basically almost over. And I think that it's important that we produce this video. And I've noticed that whenever we produce these LeBron type videos, we always get people in the comment section saying, if LeBron doesn't score, the Lakers won't be a competitive team. This has been the single biggest lie that has been told this entire season. That sentence, that statement, that sentiment, that argument has been the single biggest lie this entire season. They have said it so much that now people actually try to use it as a talking point whenever they're trying to talk about this team. And the fact of the matter is, if you look closely at the evidence, you will realize that it's a total farce. It is a total made-up farce. I've also realized that some Laker fans who are trying to make sense of what's going on with this team seem to be a little bit confused as to why this team isn't doing well. And that's really what this video, what we're hoping to provide here. We're hoping to provide some clarity. So let me get into the reasons why. this team has underperformed. The easiest way to understand the biggest issue that this team has had all year is to simply use the Los Angeles Clippers as a case study. This is the best way to illustrate the problems that this team has had. I want to systematically explain to you why LeBron scoring 30 points a game has absolutely zero impact on this team winning games. Absolutely zero. The impact is marginal, it's inconsequential. And that's really what I want to get to. As we speak, the Clippers are currently the 8th seed in the same Western Conference as the Lakers. So they're pretty much playing against the same competition for the majority of the time. But the Clippers have a 39-40 record. They are essentially a 500 ball club. So you have the Clippers. Let's keep them there. Example A is right here. Then you have the Lakers, who are the 11th seed in the West with a 31-47 record, and they're 16 games below 500, and they are clearly the more talented team. We could even say that LeBron by himself is more talented than the entire Clippers roster, minus the presence of Paul George. So the Lakers are the overwhelming more talented roster, yet they are 16 games below 500, playing against the same competition as the Clippers because they're in the same conference. Not like as if we're talking about an Eastern Conference team versus a Western Conference team. As you know, teams in the same conference play each other more versus teams in opposite conferences. So we understand that. If you're in the East, you play in the West once, and then vice versa, right? So we understand that. So we have that there. Now, here's the kicker. And this is where we're going to begin to dispel this myth, right? The Clippers haven't had a single 20-point per game score on their roster for roughly 80% of this NBA season. I want you guys to think about what I just said. The Clippers haven't had a player scoring over 20 points per game for ravely 75 to 80% of their games. They haven't had that caliber of player. PG this season has averaged about 25 points per game and has only played about 29 of the available 79 games. Then you have Norman Powell, who's a recent acquisition by the team, and he's scoring about 21 points per game, but he's only played 3 games for this team. So basically, they have had to do without guys that can score above 20 points per game. For as good as Marcus Morris Sr. has been playing, for as good as Mr. June has been playing, and Reggie Jackson, they haven't had that type of offensive talent on the floor. I want you guys to follow me because I'm trying to go somewhere here. Because by the end of this video, hopefully, if enough people see this, at least those amount of people that saw the video will at least be informed. So we can, clear the air on this. So you guys understand that. Now, the Clippers, as a team, are averaging 107.9 points per game. I also want you guys to take that bit of information and just keep it there for a second. Now let's look at the Lakers. The Lakers are scoring 111.6 points per game. So they're scoring a decent amount. They're scoring about 4 or 5 more points per game than the Clippers. The Lakers have 2 players averaging over 20 points per game this season. LeBron is averaging 30 points, and he has played 56 games, which is roughly about 80% of the games this season, 80% of the games for the Lakers. Okay. You have Russell Westbrook, who's averaging 18 points per game, and he's played 77 of the he's played 77 games for the Lakers this season. I don't know how many games they played, but he's played 77 games for the Lakers this season of the available 82, right? Of the total calendar year so far. Good. The Lakers have had more offense on the floor from the beginning of the season to this present moment. I'm pointing this out because people keep talking about offense. The argument is, if you listen to people talking about this team, if LeBron doesn't score, what's the new number? 50, the Lakers won't be competitive. I've given you an example of two teams in the same conference in the same building, one team is outscoring the other team by a decent amount of points per game, yet that other team has a better record. So if you're going to use offense, I wonder how exactly, if somebody questions you about it, how you're going to be able to explain it to that person that just asked you. Well, how can it be the offense when the team next door is scoring less points per game, but they have a better record? So how can it be the offense? That doesn't make any sense. Let's continue. The Clippers are 8 games better than the Lakers, and they haven't had a top 75 player in sight. Kawhi Leonard is the single top 75 player on that Clippers roster, and he hasn't played a single game. So the Lakers have had more talent on the floor from the beginning of this season to the present moment. Now, let me explain to you the simple reason as to why the Clippers are a better ball club, and the simple reason why it has nothing to do. Let me say it again. Absolutely nothing to do with the amount of points that LeBron is scoring on a night in and night out basis. The simple reason is this: the Clippers, for all of their offensive woes, giving up 107.8 points per game to the Lakers, who are giving up the Clippers, who are scoring 107.6 points, 9 points per game, to the Lakers, who are scoring 111.6 points per game, is this simple reason: the Clippers are giving up 108 points per game to opponents, and the Lakers are giving up 114.8 points per game to opponents. The Clippers this season are being outscored by opponents by roughly 1 point per game, roughly, give or take a decimal point, right? The Lakers, and hence the reason that they have a 39-40 record. Just look at the discrepancy in scoring, and you can understand why they're basically a 500 team. Makes sense if you think about it. The Lakers, on the other hand, are being outscored by opponents on average by 3 points per game. Hence the 31-47 record, because you're giving up more points on average. Chances are a lot of those games, when they're close, are going to go to the opponent because of the point differential. Because if we're just looking at, the delta, the arbitrage between what they're scoring and what they're giving up, there you have it, right? The single reason people believe that the Lakers can only be competitive if LeBron doesn't score 30 points per game is simply because they don't understand the real reason this team is a bad team. Period. End of story. I believe that there are two groups of people here. I believe that there are people that don't understand why this team is bad, and I believe that there are people that understand why this team is bad and are saying something else to cook in a narrative. Those are the only two schools of thought. It's either you don't know or you know and you're giving out the wrong information. Those are the only two groups of people I can think about when we're talking about this team. They keep, and let me give you guys an example. It's like you work in an office building, right? You work in an office building, and let's say your office is on the 3rd floor, and you guys don't have elevators. And the only way for you to get to your office, right, where you guys, 30, 40, you guys work, and 50, whatever, is that you have to climb stairs. And you have to climb about 3 to 4 flights of stairs every day. And every day you go to work, you're climbing stairs, and you keep seeing one of your coworkers falling down the steps. Every single day you go to work, and you're like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? This guy must be clumsy or something. But what you fail to see is that every time you get into the staircase and you see this guy falling, what you fail to see is that you don't realize that guy is being pushed down the steps. All you see is him falling, but you don't realize the reason he's falling. That is the exact same thing. That's the exact same analogy you can apply to the Lakers here. People see them losing games, but they don't understand why they're losing those games. And you have some people out there saying the reason that they're losing games is because they can't get enough offense. Let me continue to dissect this issue here. And I want to completely put this thing to rest. This may be a long video, but it's going to be informative. So if it's going to be long, then let's do it. Here's what I think. I think that the Lakers are a terrible defensive team according to the numbers. I think since the Lakers realized that they're incapable of playing a defense or totally uninterested in playing defense as a team, they decided that they're going to focus on scoring. LeBron James knows that the Lakers are a bad defensive team. Him scoring 30, 40, 50, 60, 100, 2,000 points per night, he knows that he can score 10,000 points a night. But if they give up 10,050 points per night, they're going to lose every single night. And people are going to come on TV, come into the comment section and say, well, if he doesn't score 10,050 points per night, the Lakers can't win. It is the single stupidest argument I've heard all season, but nevertheless, is what people have been saying all year long. It has nothing to do with the amount of points that he scores. LeBron is simply scoring 30 plus points per game to catch Kareem and win the scoring title, period, in the story. You cannot convince me. Otherwise, you cannot convince me that he's scoring 30 points per game because he wants the team to win. When clearly, for almost 80 games this season, 77, 78 games this season, that formula has not worked. So I don't know what people thought was going to change all of a sudden. It hasn't worked, clearly by the results. I want to take this thing a step further. The success of the Clippers is the single biggest indictment of the Lakers' failures this season. It is the single biggest reason. And this thing of LeBron needing to score more points, the Lakers can't make any shots, has been the single biggest misconception all year long. And what I am surprised is this. I have not heard a single person say or ask this question. So what is the solution? What is the solution to this problem? Because clearly what they've been doing for the last 76, 77 games hasn't worked. So what's the solution? No one has answered that. The solution is very simple. LeBron can score 50 a game. But if they give up 120, the Lakers will continue to lose. Defense has been the number one reason this team has underperformed. And I want to quickly put this out there. I'll say this last part before we close. For the people saying that, oh, the Lakers would do better if Russell Westbrook hit more shots and he was blah, 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 blah. Let me quickly say this to you guys. For as inefficient as Russell Westbrook has been this season, the Lakers are shooting 47% from the field this season. 47% as a team. The Clippers are shooting 45.7% from the floor as a team. So the Lakers have clearly been the more efficient offensive team. They've clearly been the more potent offense. So how can it be the offense that's the problem? How? This, ladies and gentlemen, has been the biggest lie that has been told this season.